America smokes more marijuana than any other country. Some use it for recreation.
What brings you guys here today?
Support the legalization of marijuana.
The country has become a patchwork of drug laws, with more and more states defying federal restrictions. In Seattle, tens of thousands of people smoke pot in public, while the mayor cheers them on.
Prohibition has not worked.
But 2,400 miles east, things couldn't be more different. New York City is now arresting more people for marijuana than any other place in any other time in history.
Give me an H. E. M. P. F. E. S. T. What's that spell? I can't hear you. What's that spell?
This is Seattle's HempFest, the largest annual marijuana event in the United States. In August, an estimated 250,000 people attended to party, protest, and smoke, all in plain view of the police.
What brings you guys here today?
Support the legalization of marijuana.
Are you a medical user?
No.
Okay. Recreational?
Yeah.
Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana?
So the crowd is right now counting down to 4:20, the internationally recognized time to get high. There are tens of thousands of people here, all about to light up, and nobody's going to get arrested.
HempFest happens on city land with city permits. In other words, the city government is helping all these people break federal law. In theory, federal agents could swoop in and start making arrests, but they never do. Perhaps because the city's top official is this year's guest of honor.
A warm Seattle welcome to the mayor of the greatest city in the world, Mayor Mike McGinn.
You know, it's interesting. If every politician and elected official who had ever tried marijuana voted to legalize it, it would be legal in an instant.
I met the mayor backstage.
In Seattle, small amounts of marijuana for personal use is the lowest enforcement priority for the Seattle Police Department. So we can't make it legal because that's a state and a federal issue.
Why is it the police force's lowest priority?
I think it reflects changing attitudes towards the drug war.
Time for us to move in a different direction and legalize marijuana next year.
In New York City, law enforcement's attitudes towards marijuana are a far cry from what we saw in Seattle, where the policy is no arrests despite the law. Here, in the nation's most populous city, more people are being arrested for marijuana than at any other time or place in history. This is how critics say New York City police arrested tens of thousands of people for minor marijuana possession last year. It's called stop and frisk. Police stop a, quote, suspicious person, and they go through his pockets, even though he's not accused of a crime. According to the NYPD's own records, they made 600,000 stops just last year. That's more people stopped on the streets of New York than live in the city of Seattle. And about 90% of them are Black and Hispanic.
Greetings, YouTube. It's NYC Resistance. I'm making this video as a wake-up call to show you what's happening in what's supposed to be the freest country in the world.
You are listening to the voice of a man who calls himself NYC Resistance. The young man spends his days and nights patrolling New York City, filming what he believes are unjust frisks and arrests made by police throughout the boroughs.
So he asked you to step outside the car, then what happened?
Associate, I smoke weed.
I'm walking home, I ain't do nothing. They just stopped. They just probably see me.
If I had a suit and tie on, you would never
with me. But because I wear a hoodie and I dress hip-hop, I'm a target.
When you dressing like with the Biggie and the jeans, saggy jeans with the do-rag and the hat ski, you already know how they gonna feel.
All right, so we just pulled in front of Yankee Stadium where we're meeting NYC Resistance. He's very paranoid about anybody knowing who he is, so he has agreed to meet with us right here. We're waiting to see if he makes an appearance.
About 20 minutes after we arrived, he showed up and agreed to talk to me while we drove around the Bronx.
What made you start doing this?
After years of constantly being stopped by the police for no reason, I decided to take matters into my own hands.
NYC Resistance told us he'd been stopped and frisked so many times over the years, he'd lost count. As a young black man living in the Bronx, he says it can be a daily occurrence, which is why he decided to pick up his camera and start fighting back.
Let me introduce, my name is NYC Resistance, right?
Okay.
And I record when the police do stop and searches.
They harass us on a regular basis. It's nothing new, you know what I'm saying? It's always like this.
NYC Resistance agreed to show us how he works, but only if we'd hide his face and never reveal his true name. He says he fears retaliation from the NYPD.
How'd you pick your name, NYC Resistance?
I'm resisting the box that NYPD is trying to put me in. Basically saying that, you know, hey, you're young, you're black, you don't have the right to walk the streets without being subjected to a search or harassment.
Critics say the marijuana arrests are a byproduct of the Stops NYC Resistance films. Hundreds of thousands of people stopped each year, and the police inevitably find a percentage of them carrying weed.
You mentioned the psychological impact. Can you tell me a little more about that?
The psychological impact is knowing that you haven't broken any laws, but being made to feel like you've broken a law, to feel like you're a criminal, to be looked upon as a criminal.
New York police guidelines for stopping someone include something called furtive movements, which NYC Resistance told us translates to walking while black.
And making up all these excuses like furtive movement or your clothing, as though we shop at some sort of criminal clothing store where we buy specialized clothes that only criminals wear. You know, it's a lie, it's a sham, it's a way to destroy people's lives before their lives actually start.
So what do you hope to accomplish by videotaping all this and posting it on YouTube?
I just really want to get the word out and, you know, something to really hold the police accountable. You know, traumatizing people is not deterring crime or stopping crime.
The New York City police refused to talk to us, but Brooklyn prosecutor Ann Swern agreed to an interview.
While they have a vigorous stop and frisk policy, New York is the largest safe city in the world, and the theory is that stopping people on the street prevents them from bringing a gun in the street.
90% of those that are stopped and frisked have committed no crime.
Right, but you don't know who's left the gun at home.
Police don't seize many guns, about one for every 700 stops. But they have seized lots of marijuana. Since Mayor Bloomberg first took office in 2002, police have arrested more people for marijuana than during the 3 previous administrations combined.
Over the last decade, we've seen an explosion of marijuana arrests in the city of New York. Over 50,000 arrests for possession of small quantities of marijuana taking place each and every year in New York City.
I met Hakeem Jeffries, a local politician in the Brooklyn neighborhood he represents.
Have you ever seen it? Stop and frisk?
Absolutely, and it pains me to see young men, largely of color, hands up against the wall, police rifling through their pockets in a situation that is a far too common sight.
So would you say the policy is discriminatory?
90% of the individuals arrested and run through the system for possession of small quantities of marijuana are black and Latino.
Perhaps the most troubling aspect of all these arrests is the fact that New York State actually decriminalized marijuana in the 70s. Possession of a small amount is only supposed to get you a ticket. But if the marijuana is in public view, it becomes an arrestable offense.
They're stopped by the police. They're asked to empty their pockets, even if there's no justification legally for them to do so. But when an officer tells you, empty your pockets, show us everything you have, they take something out. This is the marijuana. Now it's in public display. The handcuffs go on. These young men are run through the system.
And the handcuffs go on a lot. about 400,000 times for marijuana possession in the last 9 years.
Even if they aren't ultimately prosecuted, what we find is that their life has been altered and that their record has been scarred.
An arrest can cost you your job, jeopardize student loans, get you evicted from your apartment, affect immigration status, and if you've already got a record, actually send you to jail. It costs the taxpayers of New York a fortune. The criminal courts building in Brooklyn is where you face the judge when you get arrested for marijuana possession.
Police officer said that he observed you in possession of a quantity of marijuana. It was recovered from the center console of the vehicle.
They found marijuana on the floor of the car.
They recovered it from your hand.
You were in the hallway.
A little tiny Ziploc bag of marijuana that he recovered from your pants pocket. They recovered from your person. They recovered it from the ground where you dropped it. And they recovered some marijuana from the ground where they said you dropped it. It was a little Ziploc bag.
I didn't drop that.
Tell me what this is about.
It took us weeks, several meetings, and a lawyer to get permission to film here.
I know you had problems dealing with the DA's office. I think they don't want the story told.
The story, says legal aid lawyer Ellen Sachs, is about overburdened courts, prosecutors, and defense lawyers, all dealing with cases that should have never gotten here. Our first day in court, 57 of the 126 cases on the docket were for tiny amounts of marijuana.
I see all these stupid cases. These kids get arrested for marijuana. I see more bad searches now, I think, than I've ever seen before.
Why did the police officer stop your friend's car?
No reason. They just pulled us over.
Searched me, found a bag of weed.
They're not supposed to search you, but they searched you anyway? Okay.
He took it out of my back pocket, he dropped it on the floor. He looked at me, he's like, oh, you see what you dropped? They didn't recover it from my hand, they recovered it from a cigarette pack.
Where was the cigarette pack?
In my pocket. When they run up on you, they search you automatically. They don't even give you a chance, they just go in your pocket. That's their job.
That's not their job.
Okay.
Police aren't supposed to reach into people's pockets to look for drugs, and they can't legally force people to empty their pockets. But if story after story after story is to be believed, they do it all the time.
Why'd they stop my car? Racial profiling.
What they did is 100% completely wrong. It's illegal.
It's all about knowing your rights. Now I know.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. Now you know. But if you say to the cop the next time it happens, he's just going to beat the shit out of you. If you wanted to go to trial on this case, you could win because you'd win the hearing. You'd probably be acquitted if you went to trial, but it would be numerous appearances.
Why are so many kids being brought in here with nickel bags and dime bags?
If you're smoking a marijuana cigarette on the street, that's a misdemeanor. So
Are you saying all of the arrests that are being brought in here, those are all people that are actually caught smoking the marijuana, or?
No, but they could either have more than 7/8 of an ounce. It could be open in public view.
But it seems to be that through this, what's happening is through a lot of stop and frisk, cops are then pulling it out of their pocket and saying, look.
I don't have, something, the paperwork doesn't indicate that.
Hakeem Jeffries is sponsoring legislation that would stop the marijuana arrests.
$75 million per year spent on prosecuting and arresting individuals for possession of small quantities of marijuana. It's a dramatic waste of judicial and law enforcement resources.
Would you say that the stop and frisk policy is effective?
9 out of 10 of the people who are stopped, questioned, frisked, in some cases brutalized and or dehumanized, by the NYPD's own statistics, have done nothing wrong. No gun, no drugs, no contraband, no weapon, nothing at all.